Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. So this was all about section 2. So if anyone would like to add to it.
Not pertaining to any the section of the on section 2, but maybe as we move along, if we can also have some case studies. For example, priority date. We have seen there were some questions as to appearing in the paper.
Hmm.
So is that a possibility that we can have something like that, or we can devise something within our group? uh, because then that will be probably on a practical also, and we will prepare for the exam as well.
I'll do one thing. I have certain cases, but
Oh, that will be good.
because I was studying, so there were certain cases regarding
Hmm.
priority dates and all.
Correct.
So I'll share them the judgments or the orders or a summary of that in the group.
Hmm. Hmm.
So next time we could study them and then come, so that if there are any questions we could discuss among ourselves.
Okay, fine. Because these things like priority has multiple connotations, because then it could be multiple combinations possible. If someone files an international application, then comes back to a national filing, and then in priority dates and etc. So there
Hmm.
will be questions for sure on such cases, so it will be good if we have those.
Because last time when we were having class with
If you
Khurana
can.
and Khurana, so there was this judgment I researched
Yeah.
about. It was regarding post dating of the application. So priority dates and
Hmm.
all the concepts were included in that judgment.
Correct.
Although that judgment was a wrong judgment and it ultimately got overruled, but
Hmm.
at least the concepts were there.
Correct.
So that was the thing. Now coming to inventions not patentable. Rajesh ji, would you like to add to something in section 2? He has not connected his audio. Okay, let's continue. So section 3 contains the inventions not patentable. So uh, this section is something which my senior told me that you have to memorize it by heart. Each and every thing has to be memorized in section 3, because in 2 we can skip some of the things, but in section 3 everything is very important. Now in order to understand section 3, first we need to understand the basis of IPR. So IPR is something which is born out of your intellect. Patents are pertaining to the inventions, but there are certain inventions like concepts, methods. They are not entirely, not everything out of them is covered under the patents. There are things which are part of the copyright. There are things which are part of the trademark as well. So all those things have been included in section 3. First, we start with section 3, clause A. So anything which is contrary to the established natural laws, like if you claim an invention about bending of light, we all know that in a normal plane that a light travels in a straight line. So if there is a concept in which we say that we are bending the lights or something, some sort of that, so that would not be patentable, because that is contrary to the established natural laws. Or if there is some invention which is claiming that it could work against the gravity, so that is again against the natural laws, until and unless you establish that yes, you have a valid invention. Now section 3 clause B says that an invention which is contrary to the public order or morality. Now, something which is a threat to the life of humans, animals, or plants, or natural environment, a threat to the natural environment, or which could generate uh, a disorder in the public, then that would not be patentable. Now, the third thing is that mere discovery of a scientific principle. So we all know that inventions have to be created; it cannot be discovered. The concept of gravity was not an invention; it was a discovery. So the any principle or any method, any product which has been discovered is not an invention. The fourth point is these are the common objection. This 3C, 3D. When we go into patent prosecution, these are the common objections which are raised by the registry. So one needs to take care of these things, and you need to know about this. If not in paper 1 or 2, they might creep in your viva. So in any of the three exams, it is sure to creep. Either some or either all of the concepts in one form or the other would creep in. So now the 3D, another most commonly raised objection, that it's a new form of a known substance, like isotopes, isomers, and which does not actually increase the efficacy of that efficacy, or does not involve a technical advancement. So if any of such form has been discovered, or has any of this form has been made which does not increase the efficacy of a known substance, then that would not be patentable. So there are written also that salts, esters, ethers, polymorphs, metabolites. So someone who is there from the chemistry background would understand these. So if any of these forms are there, they are not patentable. Basically, in order to have these patented, you need to show that they have a increased efficacy, or there are technical advancements. So then only that these forms would be patentable. For example, there was this case; it was revoked by the after we've actually filed that 25-2 post grant opposition, and it was revoked in that. It was a new method of developing this of synthesizing paracetamol, but although it was a new method, but it was not giving the enhancements or the increased efficacy in the result. So ultimately, that got revoked. Now, there's a substance obtained by mere admixtures resulting in the aggregation of properties of the component thereof, or a process for producing such substance. So it's just a mixture. We all know that there's a wide difference between mixture and the compound. So a mixture is never patentable. Now, mere arrangement, rearrangement, or duplication.
Karthik, just one question out of curiosity for 3D. While, I mean, just to carry forward the same example that you gave, it's a new manufacturing method for paracetamol, right? But
Yeah.
So it was a post grant, that's right. But did it involve any of the new reactants, or how was it? Because 3D, the last part also indicates that even if there is a either a new should employ at least one new reactant, and even if it does that, and if there is no enhanced efficacy, will that be still a new patent, because it's a process and you're not
now the catch here was that we all know that paracetamol is already known for last so many years. They were trying to protect the new process of manufacturing it, but even that process, although it was used for the first time to synthesize paracetamol, that process was already defined in earlier publication research papers. So that was again
it was also by anticipation.
Yeah, that was also anticipation also, but what they had had this right to, although that matter is still pending before Delhi High Court. because now they
Hmm.
have moved on to appeal and all. But the reason given by IPAB in that case was that this method, although it has been used for the first time to synthesize paracetamol, this method was already disclosed in prior research papers. So that was the reason that this patent was revoked.
Okay. Right. So
No,
it
but
is about
Karthik, according to
anticipation.
Section D, even if it was not disclosed in a prior paper, it could not have been allowed probably. That's what I understand. What's your take on this?
Yeah, that's it. It should not have been allowed, but then that's why we had to file post-grant opposition. Hello.
And that's precisely what my question was, because see, if it involves a new reactant, then even if the end product is paracetamol, the enhanced efficacy criteria will not apply for paracetamol, because you are necessarily patenting a process.
Hello.
A new reagent or a new way.
I think by efficacy they mean what is therapeutic efficacy. For example,
yes, it
in
is a
Novartis,
therapeutic efficacy.
There is a Novartis case based on imatinib mesylate. If you are interested only. So where they discussed the therapeutic efficacy, which was rejected because the alpha version, which was used for cancer treatment, compared to that, they developed a beta version, saying this is little technical, I would like to say, based on some melting points and beta crystalline form was better, they said, and it has a high bioavailability. But finally, the court said that because the beta version did not have therapeutic efficacy compared to the alpha version, there was not, they didn't grant them. So this new form.
But there they were not talking probably about the new process. They were anyway talking about the new product altogether. Correct. Here I was talking about the fact that it was a new process of manufacturing the known drug. So then what we ask, I mean, I don't know what are the claims, but just understanding or trying to understand that it is the process that they were trying to patent and not the product. And if that is the case, 3D does indicate that even if your process includes at least one new reactant, that process can be patented irrespective of the fact that whether your product shows additional or enhancement in the therapeutic efficacy, because you're necessarily trying to patent the process. Is that right? Is that fair understanding of the clause is what I'm trying to understand from you?
That's what I was saying, that although it was a new process to manufacture a particular drug, but that because that process was not involved in manufacturing of that particular drug in earlier cases, but that process in itself was already published in prior research papers. So that
correct. No, I understand from
leave aside
anticipation.
No. Yeah. So that's altogether a different story. If it is anticipated, then it is not a part of 3D.
Correct. Exactly.
It's a part of different section. So if let's stick for a moment only, as you were saying, Mr. Sarang.
Yeah.
So to me, it seems if you are producing the same kind of product using a different process, it's a new thing. There is a novelty for sure. So I don't know what 3D states on this. Looks like 3D says it's not allowed because the efficacy is not going to change. You're changing the process. You have used a different reactant or reagent. You could have produced the same, let's say, paracetamol or whatever, using a different ingredient also, maybe the end product doing the same things as the earlier drug. So going purely by what's written in D, my understanding is that all that is not going to be allowed. All these changes is my understanding.
Correct. Why I'm saying is because at the end it just says at least one new reactant. Correct.
Yeah.
So product paracetamol now can't be patented because we know it's already available. But can the process be patentable? Forget in this case that it was anticipated because of prior.
Yeah.
But if that's not the, it's a completely new process.
If it's a completely new process, then we can already always apply for the process patent.
Correct. So that was my point.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
a new process for making paracetamol maybe becomes the claim.
But then that process should be altogether a new process.
Correct. Enhanced therapeutic efficacy option may not be, or that point may not be applicable because you are not necessarily patenting a product, you are patenting a process.
Yes.
That is what, and it may be an hypothetical question, but it just started with your case law on paracetamol.
No, actually, I might have got confused with the 3D because there was one 3D also which was invoked against them. So there might have been like I could not explain, or there have been confusions, but
they would have invoked something that is possible just to stop.
Hello.
Yeah.
So were you saying something, sir?
No, I was saying that they would have invoked everything that's possible to stop the patent, including and anticipate everything.
So ultimately, we were involved in the litigation before High Court.
Okay.
So at that time it was there, but let's move on. So the 3E. So mere admixtures, that was a mixtures and compounds. So that was the admixture part. Then 3F. So mixtures are not patentable. 3F is mere arrangement or rearrangement or duplication of known devices, each functioning independently of one another in a known way. So this can be explained like we have a car. In a car, we have different parts. So they are patented, we're having a different they are having different patents now, arranging and rearranging things, and then getting a patent of a new altogether new product would not be there because already those known substances have been just arranged and rearranged. So mere arrangement and rearrangement would not grant you a patent. It's not an invention, it's just an arrangement and rearrangement. But yes, arrangement or rearrangement of like art or something, they comes under the ambit of copyright again. So anything which pertains to arrangement, rearrangement, or these sort of things, they come under the concept of copyright. G part is omitted. H is a method of horticulture or agriculture. So any new method of agriculture or horticulture is not patentable. Any process of medicinal, surgical, curative, prophylactic, or a treatment to human beings, a process for a similar treatment to animals, is also not patentable. That is what I states. So like a process of injecting a medicine or a drug to the body will not be patentable. On the contrary, a new drug in itself would be patentable. Now, J states that plants and animals in whole or any part thereof, other than microorganisms, but including seeds, varieties, and species, and essentially biological processes for production of or propagation of plants and animals would again not be patentable. So plants and animals or any of their part would not be patentable, but microorganisms can be patentable. Apart from it, a mathematical, this you can mark in your respective acts, KLMN, they again are a part of copyright. So a mathematical or business method or a computer program per se or algorithm, they are part of copyright. For this K part, there are computer related invention guidelines, CRI guidelines, that's available on the IP website, IP India website. So you can go through them, in which it is specifically says that computer programs in itself, like computer code, software codes, they are not patentable in itself. But when there is some technical advancement, they can be patented. Algorithms are also, they are part of copyright. They are not part of patents. A literary, dramatic, musical, or artistic work, or any other aesthetic creation whatsoever, including cinematographic work and television productions. It's the definition of copyright itself. So L is the definition of copyrights. A mere scheme or rule or method of performing a mental act or method of playing game, again a part of copyright. A presentation of information is again a part of copyright. So anything which is part of any other act would not be covered in the Patents Act. Topography of integrated circuits. So for integrated circuits, we have altogether different law that is also part of IPR, but it's not into patent. It's integrated ICs are covered in separate law. And invention, which in effect is traditional knowledge. So this traditional knowledge is, the P part is very important, for the sole reason that traditional knowledge is one of the ground for anticipation. So traditional knowledge, anything which is a part of traditional knowledge is not patentable. In this, if you have studied about, or if you have heard about that Haldi case, so Haldi, the method to use Haldi, or the therapeutic this medicinal effects of Haldi were being patented by two NRIs in US. They were granted patent, and then India filed the opposition, and they were revoked, just for the sole purpose that they are the traditional knowledge of India. So these are all covered under Section 3, but Section 3 has to be mugged up by heart. So that's the thing. Then Section 4 is invention relating to atomic energy, not patentable. So
in some question papers, I have seen that they even ask, I think in objective types, that for example, they will give a statement and then ask whether it is 3G or 3K, which is the right section to which this statement belongs.
Yeah.
So even, I mean, I was very surprised that they're asking this kind of a question. They want us to even remember the section number precisely. I mean, not only the substance, but also
specifically for Section 2 and 3.
Yeah. So this is really crazy that they're really checking your memory.
They do check, but ultimately the thing is that if something is difficult for us, then it would be difficult for everyone who's appearing in the paper. So we all are on the same page.
Difficulty level will change, my dear friend. For younger aspirants, memory is much better than us.
No, the trick here is what my senior told me, because he's also patent agent. So what he told me was that to read them regularly. These Section 2 and 3, just read them regularly. So by the time we have our exam, we'll be through with it. So that's the only trick, and that's known by everyone.
Yeah.
So Section 4 is that anything which is related to atomic energy and comes under the ambit of Section 20 subclause 1 of Atomic Energy Act would not be patentable. That's related. That's just because atomic energy are related to national security also. So these any invention which falls under the ambit of atomic energy would not be patented. So Section 5 has been repealed. Initially, the Section 5 was that inventions where only method or processes of manufacture is patentable, but now it's been repealed after 2005 Act. It was, if I'm not wrong, it was in we had to comply with the TRIPS agreement also. So 2005 amendment came for that compliance. So with that only section 5 was repealed. So person entitled, now coming to section 6. Section 6 is again a section which can be asked by many. If not in paper 1 and 2, then obviously in Viva it can be asked. So section 6 specifically says that who can apply for the patent. So there are only 3 categories of people who can apply for the patent. The first one is that by any person claiming to be first and true and first inventor. The definition of true and first inventor, we already saw it in 2.1y, where the true and first inventor was told. 1b 6.1b states that the assignee of the person claiming to be the true and first inventor. Again, the definition of assignee has been defined in section 2. So the person who has been assigned by the true and first inventor can apply for the patent. The third category of the applicant for the patent are the legal representative of any deceased person. So the legal representative of any deceased person can apply for the patent. So there are only 3: the true and first inventor, assignee of true and first inventor, and the legal representative of any deceased person. So this was section 6. Would anyone like to add or continue from here? Because my throat has also.
I think you are the one probably who knows more than us. So I don't think, at least I can't.
I am also learning with you actually. So coming to section 6, समझ में आ गया सबको? It's like the most easiest section which I feel.
Yes.
Yeah. So section 7 is form of application. Basically, when we apply for the patent, we need to file the application for the patent is in form 1. So it just gives that. 1 minute, I'll just switch on to section 7. Yeah. So every application for a patent shall be for one invention only and shall be made in the prescribed form. Prescribed form is form 1. Application is in form 1. Specification is in form 2. So every application has to be accompanied with form 1, and in that only we need to disclose the PCT application and all. Then in this only form 1 only we need to disclose the international filing date and every other detail from the applicant's name, applicant's address, to the patent agent details, then to the title of the invention, the inventors of the invention also have to be disclosed. Apart from it, in form 5 also we need to disclose the inventor's detail, but form 1 also talks about the inventor's detail. So along with it, if it's been through the assignment, then there has to be a proof of right to make the application also. Then the third step.
So you said for assigning it to somebody, we need a proof.
Yeah, we need actually we need no objections and all, no? So like I have made an invention. I am an inventor of an application. What?
Like for example, you want to assign your patent to me. Who could have an objection?
No, we not objection. I am saying that I might have said objection, but it's not. Hello.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Yeah, it's not objection. It's we need to give that no. It was no objection actually, not objection. It was no objection that I don't have any objection for assigning. So there has to be a declaration that I, with my free will, is assigning my patent to this person.
No, I also read proof. Yeah, I think somebody was trying to add. Please go on, sir.
Yeah, so what I was saying, it requires an, I mean, that assignment is through an affidavit made. So you actually then assign by way of having an affidavit document created. That's by making that affidavit. That's what it says.
Yeah, I understand that, but I was wondering that there is some proof requirement also. What kind of proof one has to furnish, and how? I was
It's
wondering
uh,
that.
it's just the affidavit. It's just the affidavit, the
It's just
declaration
the
that
affidavit.
you can call it a declaration basically.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So then where were we? That proof of right was there. Then every application under this section shall state that the applicant is in possession of the invention and shall name the person claiming to be the true and first inventor. And where the person so claiming is not applicant or one of the applicants, the application shall contain a declaration that the applicant believes the person so named to be the true and first inventor. The fourth point is that every such person not being a convention application or an application filed under PCT designating India shall be accompanied by a provisional or complete specification. So basically form 1 along with form 2. Now coming to section 8, information and undertaking regarding foreign filing. So we have already told it's in form 3. The section 8 relates to form 3. So
It came to me. I can maybe share with you what I had in mind. An employee assigns a patent to his company, and this company then goes ahead and files a patent with the patent office. At that time, this company has to submit or furnish a proof that they are the genuine assignees. There is an affidavit supporting the assignment. They are the legal assignees of this invention. So they are the rightful. So that is the proof which they're talking about here. And
yes.
there can be some instances where probably the inventor is non-cooperative, and maybe this kind of assignment is not available, or maybe he's left the company and probably some documentation was required and it is not possible now. At that time also probably some affidavit can be filed that the inventor is not cooperating. If mentioned by Khurana and Khurana when they were taking the lectures.
Okay.
And there's something concerning non-cooperative inventors also in connection with this section 7.2. Sorry, I don't know more. Yeah. Okay.
That's actually an addition, and it's like a plus point of this meeting, that I get to know each other's viewpoint and we can add on to our knowledge. So coming to section 8, it was in form 3.
Sure.
So when we file even the ordinary application, we need to provide information regarding foreign filings. That's all described in section 8 because an applicant here has to give details, and at any point of time the controller can ask for the status of that application which has been filed in a foreign jurisdiction. So that's all covered in section 8. Now coming to section 9, it's provisional and complete specification. We all know that there are two types of applications.
Just one little clarification here. I mean, to my knowledge, these applications which we file in other countries, we also call them as secondary applications. Is it the case? Are you familiar also with this term, secondary?
I am not familiar. So.
Okay. Because in in US, when somebody files with USPTO, it's called first filing. And then if somebody has to file in other countries, all those applications which are getting filed within 12 months of this first filing in US, all those applications are called secondary filings. So
No, sir.
I think they
I
are.
am not aware of it.
This is foreign filing are also secondary filings, right? So that is what the Indian Patent Office requires, that if you are making any foreign filings, if any development takes place in those filings, those should be informed
Within the stipulated time.
within some to the Indian Patent Office. Because, because you could have received some office action, or it could have been granted, or some objection or anything. If anything happens to those applications, they should be immediately or within some time allowed informed to the Indian Patent Office also.
Yeah.
Okay, just a side comment. Yeah.
No, I'll just confirm it again.
Karthik, just
Yeah.
a question. I've heard somewhere that regarding foreign office would want to know if it is particularly rejected, right? I've heard it somewhere.
Your voice actually broke.
Oh, sorry. They would like to know particularly with respect to foreign filing if it's the application has been rejected outside.
Yeah.
That would be important information.
That's
That's what I heard.
that's also covered in this section 8 only, because if you see the language of section 8.
Yeah.
So
No, I'm saying particularly if it is rejected. I've heard it in some class or etc. But
in
particular
every
information is
development,
also very important.
every development we'll have to inform. Each and every development would have to be informed to the Indian Patent Office.
Yeah, even citation of a prior art on that application in a foreign country is an equally important thing to be informed. This rejection, I think.
Yeah. After a minute, we'll need to reconnect. So in the meantime, we'll just go through this.
How long do we intend to continue?
Yeah. So in regards to section 9, so we all know that there are two types of specification: provisional and complete specification. I'll not go into details of the this language of the act, but in a nutshell, there are two types of specification: provisional and complete. When we are not through with the specification with the invention, in order to secure the priority, we file the provisional specification. It can be only the part of the invention which we wish to disclose to the office, and after within a period of 12 months we need to file a complete specification. So, and within that period of filing provisional and complete specification, we can file multiple provisional specification. Furthermore, from the date of first priority of filing the provisional specification, our priority dates basically starts on the provisional specification. But after filing of the provisional specification, if within 12 months we file a complete specification, then we can again, and post that we file another complete specification, then that earlier complete specification can be termed as a provisional specification. So that's through an application to the controller. Now we need to reconnect because it's almost time. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah. So
okay.